Kick-ass facts. What's in a name? Pew, 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 pew! Are you thinking of naming your kid something really unique with an unusual spelling? Don't. Please note, I am not referring to ethnic or cultural names. I have one of those. I am referring to ABCDE being Absidy or Nicole being spelled with two Y's and an umlaut. Multiple studies from around the world have found links between non-traditional names and employment, social, and economic outcomes. The first such research was conducted in 1948 when Harvard University looked at the outcomes of 3,300 recent graduates and found that those with unusual names were more likely to have failed their studies or gone on to have negative psychological experiences. I'd also like it to be known that I'm not name shaming. I don't care what you name your kids. You do you, boo. I'm just sharing some interesting research I found. A 1954 study published in the British Journal of Psychology by G. Jahota found that a child's character can be affected by their name. Jahota researched the relationship between names and behavior in Africa with the University of the Gold Coast. He learned that in Ashanti communities, they believed the day of the week a child was born would affect their behavior. So children born in Ashanti communities had the day of the week they were born included in their name. I'm a Wednesday. Boys born on Mondays were expected to be mild-mannered, but boys born on Wednesdays were believed to be violent and aggressive. Jahota looked at the local juvenile court records to see if boys born on Wednesdays were involved in more crimes. And the answer was yes, they lived up to their names. Jahota found that the number of violent crimes committed by Wednesdays far exceeded what would be expected by chance. He also found that boys born on Mondays were more likely to be peaceful, law-abiding citizens. Sounds like a bit of a chicken and the egg situation and other people's prejudices. A study looking at the names of almost 15,000 Oxford University students between 2008 and 2013 found that people with certain names were much more likely to attend the school. After controlling for name popularity, they found that a student named Eleanor was 100 times more likely to get accepted at the school than a Jade. Peters, Annas, and Simons were also ranked high. An analysis of 325 million baby names recorded by the Social Security Administration in the United States from 1880 to 2007 showed that parents were less likely to choose popular names as time went on. For instance, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, about 5% of babies born were named with the top common name, while more recently that dropped to 1%. About 40% of boys received one of the 10 most common names in the 1880s, while now fewer than 10% do. For girls, the percentage with a top 10 name dropped from 25% in 1945 to 8% in 2007. Similar results were seen for the top 50 names. About half of girls received one of the top 50 most popular names until the mid-20th century. Now just 1 in 4 have those names. A British study of 3,000 parents suggests 1 in 5 parents regret the name they chose for their child, many of whom were distressed over the unusual or oddly spelled names they'd chosen. 20% of the parents in the study wish they had chosen a name that was easier to spell, 8% were fed up of people being unable to pronounce the child's name, and 10% thought the chosen name was clever at the time, but the novelty had worn off. A 2005 study by the University of Florida found that boys with names traditionally given to girls are more likely to misbehave than their counterparts with more masculine names. When in elementary school, boys named Ashley or Shannon, for instance, behaved just like their Brians and Johns. Once those kids hit the 6th grade, all of a sudden the rates of disciplinary problems skyrocket and test scores take a nosedive, and it was much worse if there happened to be a girl in the grade with the same name. Girls with names that are relatively feminine in high school chose advanced coursework in humanities, and those with less feminine-sounding names are more likely to choose math and science courses. Children who have common names with unusual spellings, see the aforementioned Nicole with 2 Y's and an umlaut, have slowed spelling and reading capabilities, said U.S. psychologist Jean Twenge in her study First Name Desirability and Adjustment. She says, you have a child named Jennifer spelled with a G. Her teacher says, are you sure your name is spelled that way? That can be incredibly hard on a person's confidence. Difficult to pronounce names could also impact someone's career. A study by New York University found that people with easy to pronounce names were favored more than those with names that were hard to pronounce. The study also found that names that were easy to pronounce held higher positions at law firms. Another study has shown that female company CEOs were more likely to have common names, but male executives were more likely to have unique names. A recent study from the Institute of Psychology at Beijing looked at a link between a person's name and the risk of being convicted of a crime. The researchers looked at hundreds of thousands of people. They found that even after controlling for the influence of background demographic factors, people with names that were unpopular or had negative connotations were more likely to be involved in a crime. A 2011 German study asked participants to say whether or not they would follow up with a potential date based on the person's name. They found that individuals with names considered unfashionable at the time, such as Kevin, sorry Kevins, it's 2011, were more likely to be rejected than those with trendy names such as Alexander. Teachers may subconsciously lower their expectations for pupils with unique names and predict higher grades from students with traditional sounding names like Catherine or William. A study of 2 million children in Florida found that youngsters with traditional names were more likely to achieve higher grades in their end-of-year tests. And finally, unusual names have been linked to narcissism. Narcissists often have a strong desire to be seen as special and unique. Choosing an unusual name for their child can be a way to draw attention to themselves and create a sense of uniqueness or distinctiveness in their family. Once again, let me say, don't get your knickers in a knot if I said some shit you didn't like. I didn't write the studies. I just shared the information because I thought it was interesting.